Hello and welcome to Setting the Stage, Episode 9, Scraw and Gnomestones. Okay, so today I'm talking with Scraw. To get started, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are outside of D&D?
I'm Scraw. I am a DM, and I like to DM AD&D, and right now I live in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm happy to be here.
Cool. So AD&D, you mean like first edition or second edition?
Yeah, like first edition out of the like those books. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've tried first edition once, and um, I gotta say Thaco is not something I'm happy about, but
Yeah, it's true. That's one of the hard parts, but I love it.
yeah, there's lots of other parts of the system that are very charming. I can see why people like them, and there are other systems that have carried those bits forward. That it's always nice to have that sort of nostalgia aspect to it.
Yeah, yeah, I like to play with a nostalgic game. I originally started my dad was the one who taught me how to play.
Yeah,
Um, and so I just use the same sets and stuff. Sometimes I like to bring back stuff from a long time ago.
yeah, cool. Yeah, I've got my dad's stuff. He's the one that got me into it too. So I've also got the old basic set, but I've never actually played using it. It's just something he had in his garage that I've hung on to now.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
So you got into playing like with your dad. Who else was in that group initially?
I think originally it was the group was probably me and my brother.
Okay.
And we would play just like that. But there was quite a bit I seem to remember of me playing just with my dad. I have to say I do really like single player and DM D&D. I
Hmm.
think super underrated. Um, yeah, just be the center of the story, and it's like exciting. It never stops. You gotta make a lot of decisions.
That's actually why I like being a DM a lot, is because I feel like I'm always part of the action. So I
Yeah,
can definitely see the appeal for that as a player as well, because then the focus is always on you. It's never like you have to wait for your turn because it's someone else's in the spotlight.
yeah. There's some things you can't do when you're just playing by yourself, but it can be pretty fun.
And I've done occasional like single player, like this person goes off and does a little scouting expedition by themselves, but yeah, never like, for an extended period.
Yeah, yeah. I have one game that I'm playing right now that is like single player all the time. And it's just like one gnome that's just kind of in the wilderness by themselves.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that one, it's kind of somber playing D&D by yourself.
Are you the player for that one or the DM?
No, I'm the DM.
Well, how did you start being a DM? Like, you're playing with your dad, and then how'd that transition happen?
Yeah. Well, I always just kind of played and um, like played on and off like on holidays, and really just played with my dad only. Like I think one of the things about AD&D is you kind of have to have someone to teach you how to play, like because there
Hmm.
isn't really like an online meta to like address. Um, but then when it started getting popular during the pandemic again, people were like, "Yo, have you ever heard of D&D?" And D? And I'm like, "Yeah, I've heard of D&D." They were like, "Do you like know how to? Do you know anyone who DMs?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll DM now. I already have like a world ready to go." So um, I just started doing like a series of campaigns, and now I do like a few, um, and that's kind of how I started most recently.
Okay, so like in your survey, I think you said you started playing in 2002. So that's a pretty big gap. That's almost 20 years.
I guess. Yeah, I mean, I started again in like maybe 2018 or 2019. I guess it was the pandemic 2020. It's hard to tell. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah, it's a blur.
yeah,
It's all the same year.
around that time.
Yeah.
Before that, maybe a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, 2002, sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's maybe when I started. So like, I guess that's 20 years ago.
That's cool. So were you playing in the meantime, or was there was a big hiatus after you were initially introduced to it by your dad?
I would just say I play a couple times a year. Sometimes I have a couple friends come over. I play with my friends. Guy. Yeah. This guy who's now a physics postdoc at Oxford, but he can't get on the Zoom calls now. But
Right.
people would come over for the holidays. Sometimes we definitely had quite a few people, but when you try to have holiday D&D, sometimes people don't have the same attention span. It gets a little messy sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. My group plays remotely, and we have a yearly get together, but we never do D&D when we're doing it. It's always a board game night.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
So you got moved from playing with your dad to being a DM. Was there like a time where you were like a player during that intervening years, or you?
Yeah, I started mostly play but as I said, yeah, just like with a few friends, a couple friends from high school, and like at my house with
Oh,
AD&D stuff.
okay.
I played 5e like a couple times through other DMs like in the last couple of years.
Mhm.
But I'm pretty much AD&D all the way. I mean, I know the 5e rules just from like watching a couple of the podcasts and stuff. They're not that hard to pick up kind of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it's all you roll d20s and you deal
yeah,
damage.
there's more advantage. I use more percentile dice. Yeah, I don't do any death saving throws. I do one.
Mhm.
I added in one.
Eh, It's it's not bad. It's
Yeah,
something.
but then in like sometime in like whenever 2020 or something, my friend just like from a camp I used to work at was like, let's play D&D, and I was like, do you want to play? Um, so I started play. I was hanging out in a basement, at the time. So I got some stuff together and we started putting it together, and that has turned into what is now Gnomestones, the game that I play, which I probably should have name dropped like 20 minutes ago, but that's fine.
Well, it's all good. Gnome stones. Name drop it now. So, yeah, let's talk about gnome stones. You want to give us like a physical description of the world?
Yeah, I mean, the boundaries are a little bit vague, but it's traditional fantasy style, the good stuff. There are modern twists, but I like to keep it that way. I have like a scroll of like timelines that goes back for a few thousand years, and I like to make hex maps and try to interlock them to be like a long world connected by hex maps. And then there are like a lot of cultures that come in and out. There are gnomes, but it's called gnome
Yeah,
stones.
I figured.
Yeah, the gnomes, they have a game called gnome stones. You roll some dice, they rip you off.
Okay. I mean, that also sounds like gnomes. Um, so you said traditional. Does that mean like, elves are living in the forest, dwarves are living in the mountains, that kind of thing? What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I start. I like to start at the start, and then I think I can let the players see how they want to add unique stuff or twists to the world based on like their interests. But yeah, I like to the elves live in Olendor. There are no roads to Olendor. It's a city hidden in a forest on a lake. Um, you know, very classic. There are a lot of gnomes. There are humans, but I like to add stuff in one at a time. I do it kind of slow.
Mhm.
Um, so, you know, I think if I were to put it up as like an opinion on like the Reddit D&D memes, I might get lambasted, or is it lambasted? Whatever the word is,
Lambasted.
lambasted. But
Sounds so weird when you say it out loud. Yeah.
yeah, I like to, but there are not definitely not the class options. In fact, I don't even really focus on classes very much at all. And some of the best games I've ever had been as a player, I feel like I was just like a townsperson. Like I don't have any skills.
Oh yeah, and there's also a lot less choice in first edition.
There's a lot less choice for your classes and stuff, but I like to say that there's like choice in other ways that like it requires you to like make choices within the game. Um, like a lot of games are very class focused, but I like to when I'm playing the game be like, well, if everyone was just like people right now, would there still be like a game? It's the only game using like the skills, or is there an underlying choice development and like plotting chart that like works with people's character development and stuff like that?
Yeah, like the mechanics don't have to define your character's personality. Is that
Yeah,
what you
I
meant?
like when the mechanics can take a back seat even sometimes, but it still feels like you're making playing a game. That is like a sweet spot for me. But that being said, like I love to mess around with weird mechanics and make you know, I like I collaborated on like a Beastmaster skill tree with one of my friends.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I was thinking one of the other things I did mechanically for my campaign
Hmm.
that doesn't work within the rules, but just made more sense was language proficiency.
Language proficiency.
Yeah,
Hmm.
we had like one character that was like, this guy should speak like 5 different languages. He's traveled all over the world, but
Sure.
his intelligence is like 10. So like
Uh,
by the rules, he speaks 2 languages, but he
yeah,
should
that's
speak
true.
5.
Yeah. And
Uh,
and I'm not entirely sure, but I was told that like those language proficiency allotments in AD&D are the a number of languages that your character could learn. Um and like but they don't know. um
yeah,
so like I mean usually I just have like a some of those rules it's just like as long as it's fun we could do that, but like if they can't talk to anybody it's like damn. um there's a lot of things like that that seem good at first, like cursing your players like feels good at first, but then they start freaking out, and it's just like damn, I really had that plot point to get to, but now they're cursed.
yeah, and it's sometimes it's like the curse is so bad that it's like you've basically killed the character. I think I had a campaign where I had something like that happen, and it was just like, okay, well, I don't want to play this guy anymore. I'm gonna swap out.
Yeah, don't tell my players. I'm not actually trying to kill them, but um, it is really hard to not kill characters when um, they'd only get one death saving throw. Um,
It's it's every DM's
it's
secret.
really an art. I use a lot of NPC, like classic kind of style of battle where like there's lots of NPCs sometimes, but they like die in mass number.
I think it's actually like it's an element of realism that
Yeah,
you like if you go unconscious in like a medieval era, usually you will die
yeah,
or like come out of it with extreme brain damage. So having that be something that's actually threatening to someone is realistic. Like I get that.
yep.
And I had this discussion with my players once. We're like, okay, so how do you get around this? And the answer was, well, there's the fighting defensively combat option.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if first edition had that, but and everyone should just be using that constantly because they're afraid of dying, so
Yeah,
they'd always be fighting defensively. Um, and the problem is that makes combat a lot less fun because you're not
right.
hitting as often because you take a penalty on your attack rolls and your defense is higher, and the same thing is true for your opponents. Um, so
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, just imagine if everyone's AC was 6 higher or lower, excuse me, for first edition. That then it's like combat is just a bunch of rolling 20s and missing d20s and missing all the
Yeah,
time.
of course high armor class problems, what we'll call high is like a meaning good, are like, you know, I think about that sometimes because it is fun to feel like you can extend yourself to a certain extent and not in danger. Um, and sometimes like it's I try to add in things so that my players still feel like they can contribute, but like aren't like about to die. you know. Um, but so far I've been able to do it. None of them have none of them I had to roll on them a couple times. I have one die that I keep, a d20 for the single death throw so that we don't have to like associate it with other things.
Oh, that's cool. The black die.
Yeah, it's actually a white die.
Okay, well,
Yeah, but you got the exact idea.
okay, cool. I like that. That's neat. That's neat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Really kind of a bone color. Yeah,
All right, so back to gnome stones, if you want to
yeah,
get back there. What about the gods for the campaign? So you've got like
yeah.
lots of traditional races going around, but what about the divine beings?
Yes. So I really like gods and religions as part of the game of D&D. It was one of like my favorite parts from the start. Yeah, I don't know why, but I really appreciate a good religion story, and I have like heterogeneous religions, so each one is like a little bit different, and come from different places. and have like different rises and falls and stuff. So I'd say the main ones I focus on are a people who follow Earth, the god of creation, URF, um, and it has sort of like a pilgrimage. Um, and then there's the followers of Buspar, which is a god of motion. But each one of these followings really think that their god is the true god. So they're not like pantheonic, though. I have some people who believe in pantheonic gods at the fringes of the world, but I try to like give it people one at a time because when you start going really deep on gods, people start to be like, "What are you talking about?" Um, and then there's like a third god, god of Vidor, god of the unknown, and this god was pretty ancient. There was like a golden age 3,000 years ago, but then there was a dark age. There's a death cult, and there was a schism until Buspar saved the world, but then disappeared, leading to another series of schisms. A bunch of political things happened later, and here we are in the year 246, Earth Octavian Dynasty. There's lots that goes into that, but you know, I'm really into the show don't tell concept because you know there's a lot into it, and it's hard to get invested in a fantasy world. You know, you're asking a
Yeah,
lot
yeah, no.
actually of your players.
Having stuff show up that like in like a religious festival that the players are just walking by is definitely better than, handing them a document that describes the same kind of thing.
Yeah, though I will provide them with NPCs who do want to force lore at them. But they can not listen to them.
Yeah, you got the evangelists there too at the festival.
Yeah. But sometimes it comes in handy to know this kind of stuff, you know?
Hmm.
You're like, how would I have known that that thing is weak to that thing? It's like, well, it's in the lore, you know?
So just three main gods then, is that right?
Yeah, well, those are the three that I've been working with so far, and they've provided me with a lot of content, and haven't really run dry. But I have there is an evil demon, an evil demon lord. I'm really loving the house, the denizens of the House of Chol. His name is Chol, but
Hmm.
it's really become a great series of villains in for my players. And then there's a couple other gods hanging around the edge. You know, there's Syncopter, the god of luck. I think. The gnomes have a god, Gerstramil, the god of the deep mother.
Okay.
They believe that if you keep going down and just keep going down and down into the tunnels, eventually you will find Gerstramil, where all things come from deep in the tunnels. And there's even some stories of gnomes who tried to do that very thing. But um, that is
Of
another
course.
one. There's a couple gods that I'm like playing around with, but I like to add things as I go and not to. I don't want to have to fill out things just to feel like I want it to be complete. You know,
Hmm. Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
no, I
kind of
get that.
overrated for me to do that because then people are like, what the hell's going on? But
Yeah, and it gives you freedom to bring in something that fits better depending on the
yeah,
actions that your players take.
yeah, I mean, it gets pretty. There's a lot there because the Buspar followers, break into six like elemental groups in the way of motion um, that they ward upon, but you could be any of those. The series of Vidor are all but gone, in at least in the Earth Octavian age, which refers to the city Octavia, which is a hanging city perched between the walls of two massive redstone cliffs above a
Yeah,
river.
yeah, that sounded pretty cool.
Yeah.
You just said something interesting though. You said six elements?
Yeah, six swords and there's a seven swords of Buspar. So Buspar had their own sword, and then there was a sword of light and a sword of dark, and then a sword of earth and sword of wind, and one of fire and one of water.
Okay.
Um, and well, it's a tale, but after Buspar vanished, they fought amongst themselves, leading to the War of Sun and Wind, which is an era in the timeline of Gnomestones.
Okay. Yeah, that was another question I had. You said that you have a physical like parchment document that you wrote the history on, like a
Yes,
ancient historian.
Yes, it's just I got a huge scroll of parchment from some store, maybe Amazon. Sorry, we can edit that out. I got it
No,
from some.
I actually have a parchment roll just like that, and I
Oh
got it
yeah,
at a butcher shop.
nice. Oh, that's really
Because
cool.
they use it to put onto their butcher block so they don't have to clean it as often because the parchment paper is covering it.
Oh
So
yeah, really
they
cool.
have it on like this huge roll that they just bring out, and whenever it gets dirty, they cut it and then bring the other stuff, so they don't have to clean when they're changing between different types of meat or something.
Yeah.
Um, and they were able to sell me one of those, so now I have a big old roll of butcher block parchment paper that works great for props.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, and I try to use it like a timeline. I feel like I am almost to the point where I have to redo another draft of my timeline, of my scroll, because like sometimes things change a little bit. Like as you're playing the game, it's like it would make more sense if these happened at the same time and stuff. But it goes back. Uh, the telling of the times of Earth, past the times of Buspar, past the Dark Age to the Golden Age of Vidor, past that to the first kings and emperors of Old Zixth, and beyond that, apparently even the city of Octavia stood then, but that's like a campaign in of itself. I like to like create a world, and then I think there are like some Easter egg plots that people like could pursue in terms of like trying to understand it if they wish to, but they don't
Mhm.
have to. But like they're there.
Yeah, I've always thought that would be an interesting like campaign plot if it wasn't like treasure, but instead you're working for like this archaeologist that just wants to like learn more about the past. So he's having you explore
Mhm.
all of these ancient ruins, and like, there's
Yeah.
undead or there's like a troll that's taken up residence in this old temple or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, I love to bring in old stuff and like forgotten shrines. And when I have so much old stuff, it just kind of like fills in what might be there.
Hmm.
Um, One of my favorite things to do in D&D is like randomize things. I think I leave a lot more up to chance than at least other games that like I have seen or hear about these days. And I like to put like interactions on big tables and charts, and also like look up a bunch of on the internet. I'm so grateful for the internet creators of charts. But I just like roll on a d20 and then like see which element from the past maybe they run across as they're working through the desert. I like to do like hex crawls. So there's like a lot of time for like random uh, encounters.
Okay, cool. That's a pretty neat way of bringing in that type of history is with a random encounter table for it. I'd never thought of doing that.
Yeah, it's a lot of the I like to read old um like magazine dungeon like issues kind of. Like there's a magazine called Dungeon Magazine.
Hmm.
Um
No, I had a subscription to it.
oh, and dude, that's awesome. You should, dude, always go back and read through those. They always have these rumor tables. Rumor tables, so underrated.
I forgot that. Yeah, I forgot they had like 20 new ones each month or something like that. I forgot.
Yeah, yeah, and they have these rumor tables where like some of them are always false. Where
Hmm.
like it's like there's these 10 rumors and you can roll to like hear one, but like three of them are wrong. Like bringing in wrong information, that when you can feel like the pieces of the game are solid enough that you can start to bring in wrong information and it's not just more confusing. That's like it's a sweet spot too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, getting back to you seemed like you were excited to talk about Octavia. You want to get into that city?
Yeah, sure. Well, Octavia, um, actually is not original content. I will say is from a book, and you can Google like and just type in Octavia Fantasy City, and there are like dozens of renditions of people who have like sketched this from
Hmm.
this like kind of poem style book. For this guy, it's called Invisible Cities. Maybe you heard of it, but he it's like Marco Polo is going through all these different fantasy cities, and I have some of these fantasy cities as like focal points in areas of my world, which is like kind of like a meta campaign underneath, that they're tied to the existence of the world in some way. Um, but Octavia, I don't think anybody's done it in D&D, so it's been like an incredible concept to try and like turn into a game. It's a hanging basket city of like 10,000, and so I had to figure out how to like organize it, and like think about like what would happen in the game. Like I have it in like eight kind of, what are they? Not quadrants, octants. It's
Yeah.
been a while.
Usually people just use the word pie slice once you get to that many, but yeah, I guess octants.
Octants. Math is spatial relations are my weakness. So the if there are engineers listening, they've caught me now. But I put eight of those, and there's like a central area, and like of course, there's some class stuff going on with the where you are in the basket hanging city, and you know, fire is not allowed because if it caught fire, it'd be super bad.
Of
So
course.
thinking about things like that. But I try to treat it like a full city, and there are people wheeling baskets up and down in the rivers. There are gnomes on boats trading below, and there's a sport called like hook sprints where people kind of look like core from the Magic game Magic the Gathering, like the race of core Kor. Um,
I don't know
use
that one.
those kinds of devices to like hook rocks and sprint. Uh, they're like harnessed in, but sometimes tampering occurs because there's gang warfare and uh, yeah, it's a good time.
Okay, so they're using these hooks to like grab onto the ropes that are the city is suspended by.
Yes. Uh, well, it's like there's like a series of hanging links along the cliffside rock wall that is nearby to the side of the sprawl of these baskets, down on one of the lower corners. So the sports bar, the Golden Hooks, overlooks a cliff wall where they watch the hook sprinters race,
Okay.
and they
That's
bet on them and stuff if they want to.
that sounds pretty neat. Have you ever had like a player do a race?
No, I have not. That could be a plot in the future, but I like to bring in everything as like a thing they could do, one day. But
Yeah.
I've had incredibly good sports from my like what I would call the players of my main campaign, that they are just so willing to be completely average characters, but incredible players.
It's great.
um, I think one of them is gonna try their hand at hook sprinting. Um, they did just make it back to Octavia after a long, really months that I got them into a dungeon battling. It's part of a longer campaign with Chol.
My campaign's based off of the like classic Greek stuff, so there's always like
Nice.
athletic games because that's how the Greeks would celebrate like a wedding or a funeral was with by everyone
Yep.
has a boxing tournament or something like that.
Yeah,
So
very cool.
my players are very used to me having like athletic competitions be something that just shows up all the time and that they usually participate.
Yeah, depending on the player group. Some one of my players groups I would never ever do like a sporting event for, but that group likes sports. We did a tournament on a beach thrown by like a wealthy lord, and but then there was an invasion, like
Yes.
at the end of the tournament, um, and it turned into a long battle all night. But I love that. There's like in a town called Varda, there's like a famed boxing ring at this tavern that is its own little game. I like to add like little mini games and stuff in there. So there's like lots. I like to provide lots of opportunities to play games within the game.
Yeah, cool, cool. I don't think I have any more questions at the moment about like the actual campaign setting. Did you want to talk about like your campaign that you've been running for your players?
Sure. Let's see. I'll focus on the one I call the Chosen Ones right now, which I would say is the main one. It's been going for I guess like 3 years now.
Okay.
Um, we just do it like every Tuesday, and it's It's pretty fun. I'm with it's my dad is in it as well as some friends. Um,
Cool.
and they're excellent. They are just a group of, real just run of the mill people, humans. I love playing humans. That have gotten wrapped up in a wild scheme, and they may even be chosen ones. But I love to add in a ton of meta stuff about what it means to be a chosen one, and like uh, who really is. So I just had one. They thought this one person was a chosen one, but then they died a couple sessions ago. So well, I don't know. There. How do you even describe a campaign? I'll tell you some of the characters. Jort, Jort Goodbean, the human farmer, soldier man. I guess he's technically a fighter in class. Um,
Okay.
he is just an amazing character, and he's made by my friend Ryan Hill, who like works on TV shows in LA, so he knows a good story. And George just he's really clueless, but always works out for him. He's got a hammer that was given to him by his mother from a bygone age. He at one point became a beastmaster with a cloud of flies that he keeps in a pouch that he would
Okay.
stick upon people. He has had he the campaign started with an encounter where gnomes actually warred with his family, and a couple of his family members died. So he's had a long time getting over his frustration, and some might even say hatred of the gnomes. But um, he's been coming around over the past year and a half. um, and he fights with a lucerne hammer. And
Lucerne? What's a lucerne hammer? Like I
the
thought that was
lucerne
like a
hammer is
brand
one
of
of the
milk.
stranger. It's one of the stranger pole arms. It's like the bec de Corbin, but like the opposite. Um,
Oh, okay. I think I
uh,
have heard of
there,
that.
there's there's a pokey stick and the hammer,
Okay,
and
yes, I do. I
usually,
have seen this before. Okay, yeah. All right, yeah. It's a spear with a hammer in the sort of
yeah, and
half middle of
usually
it.
you use the spiky part, but lucerne hammer, it's more geared towards using the hammer part. Um, so it stabs and hammers, and yeah, it's straight out of the D&D weapon list. And
That's right. They used to have so many more cool pole arms like that. I forgot about that.
yep, he has some incredible rolls, incredible 20s and ones, and I think he really, when he was in Octavia and a necromancer of Chol tried to sacrifice his soul, um, and he was going along with it, and then he rolled a 20 at the same time that I rolled a 20, and it was I think there was like a Harry Potter-esque moment the first time he touched Chol, like there was soulful contact, and now there's darkness spreading up his arm, but he may or may not be the chosen one, but of who it's questionable. he, he has a 20 once he like jumped off a waterfall and discovered the cave under the waterfall, because who even makes a waterfall without a cave under it? But that was really helpful when he did that. He saves the day really every time. So
Sounds pretty
I'm
cool.
really talking him up to the point where I will I'll make other players jealous, but they're amazing as well. There's Zuba. Um, Zuba's played by my friend James. He's a cleric of Buspar. Um,
Yep.
he is pretty, he's a glue guy. He's an easygoing cleric who he's trying his best. Though he often ends up bungling many things, especially with the gnomes. And he has low charisma, but he
Okay.
did smash the spigot of the chalice of the Shrine of Trostanoval, which is a historic event that he smashed that. Um, so he's kind of like the hero in that way, how it's like the relatable character.
Every
Uh,
man. I guess the
yep, exactly, exactly. You never know what Jordan's gonna do, but Zuba, you can really see it in his shoes and be like, well, what the heck are you gonna do with this chaos that's unfolding? Um, and then my dad plays Arzur, an old school rogue, Arzur of the Black Blade. He's always trying to get some backstabs. Um, We're gonna feature him in a few episodes of Gnomestones because we've returned to Octavia, where his gang is from, Dill's gang, and so there will probably be some things that go on that way. But yeah, he's a sneaky rogue. He's not so sure that he wants to help uh, fight the legions of Chol because they've been shanghaied into quite a few different raiding parties in various wars. Um, so those are, and then there's a fighter named Darius, who is my friend Andrew, who now unfortunately he played for like a few months, but is now moving to England. So that would be a hard time zone shift
Yes, it would be.
um, to be a regular. And so that is the main campaign, though I have a couple others, but yeah, I love those ones. It's on Tuesdays, and I'm looking forward to the next session.
So I take it you guys play virtually?
Yeah, we play on Zoom. I get a camera and I put the camera and hook it up to overview like my table, and I use miniatures of a type, and I move them around on the screen, which is a little bit more work than I rather play in person. It's always my other campaign is in person. Yeah, I mean, I have it kind of like a little screen with characters on it and move them around for them.
Yeah, I used to do it that way too. But
Yeah.
now I like the virtual tabletop a lot more.
Yeah, you do virtual.
Yeah, yeah. I've been playing with the same group since middle school,
Nice, nice.
20 years now, and yeah, it would be nice if we all still lived in the same place, but we don't because life
Yeah.
happened, and yeah, virtual is the only way to do it.
Yeah. It's true that virtual allows me to play with these people and I otherwise would not get to. And virtual also allows me to have an incredible range of resources to just throw at the players, like on the fly. Um, Other than that, I am a huge fan of like de-teching D&D, and I just like love analog D&D in every way.
Hmm.
And you know, I was trying to like write down all the stuff in my campaign, but like as we've already like talked about a little bit, it's pretty there's like it's pretty complex. So I've recently started entering it all into a giant spreadsheet. So I have like a massive spreadsheet now that I'm working with. But it's up to my ability to recall things and to bring out stuff like, but it's more tech, and I always like to be analog. But like I have a spreadsheet page for books that are just like fantasy books, and then I can roll. I have it by rarity in common, uncommon, and rare. Then I can sort by that and roll for like if the book is common, uncommon, or rare, which book it is. Um, and then like I just like get to fill out bookshelves wherever I want with like funny ass book names.
Okay, that's cool. Have you ever used the Thieves Guild website?
The Thieves Guild website. I'm pretty sure I do use the Thieves Guild website sometimes.
They have a bunch of those like charts and tables and stuff like that. It's a really nice website.
Yeah, yeah, I use this website sometimes. I really, really like. There is some content creator who made a list of names. I don't know who this person is, but I'm gonna give him a shout out on this podcast.
Yeah, go for it.
It's the Fantasy Names Generators website. Um, the Fantasy Names Generators website is it's just run by this person who just did it for fun, and now it is like you probably go. It's bajillions of names. Have you ever used this name list?
Uh,
Um,
I did. I played around with it, but I haven't like actually used it for my campaigns.
yeah,
But yeah, I have touched it before.
yeah. I'm sure a lot of people know which one it is. It's like kind of like a dark blue background, and it has bajillions of names. And whoever runs that list, thank you so much because that site's the best.
Yeah. There is an
Um,
about section. So it's
yeah,
someone
Emily
named
found it.
Emily. Yeah.
Emily, yes. Thank you, Emily. So that resource is awesome. I like to use Scryfall with magic cards and click random magic cards. that is very helpful. I like to use D&D Speak charts, dndspeak.com. It's very helpful.
I don't know that one.
Um,
What's D&D
I don't know. They just
Speak?
have lots of cool charts. Yeah, that's the cool ones.
Okay,
And
cool.
yeah, I use a lot from D&D Speak, I'd say. Um, but I'm always on the hunt for different new ones. I found one on Reddit the other day that was like, "What are those goblins doing?" 100 different things that those goblins could be doing.
That's funny.
And like, when I see a new chart that I love, I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm adding that to the list right now." And so I love to do that.
I default to having my monster NPCs gambling pretty often.
Yeah, they're bent over gambling. Yeah, sure.
Well, it's
Um,
takes up their time on guard
yeah, yeah,
duty, and it's a realistic
of
activity. So,
course, of course. Um, Another good one. Sometimes they're just like PDFs you'll find sometimes, like I have like a few different weather resources. I love like wilderness type games and playing, so I have like a series of wilderness type charts.
hmm
Um, and those are really fun to use. Uh yeah, I mean I love not knowing what's gonna happen, it's part of the game.
Yeah,
And the internet
yeah.
has allowed for thousands of choices.
The charts do definitely make it so you can have more sort of organic storytelling. But I feel like
Yeah.
if you're going to do that, you have to be open to re-rolling if you get an answer that isn't fun.
That is true. I will just re-roll them quick sometimes. You got to know when to be able to commit to what the charts are saying versus yeah, it's about setting up the situation and the circumstances in such a way where you would be okay with it either way, which is something that is really important for DMs to understand is like how to provide for flexibility and choice, but know where the things that you would like to happen in certain ways. I like to, for my games, and I know a lot of games aren't like this, I don't like to include NPCs that I wouldn't be okay with dying at any moment.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking of a mistake I had made with a random table at one point. Was
Hmm.
there was this quest giving NPC that they were meeting and they were traveling to to his home. And he was
Hmm.
leading the way. And then there was a random encounter that came up, and it was like a pretty deadly one, but it was like, they can probably handle it.
Yeah.
And the quest giver ended up dying in the combat. Um, and then it was just like, okay, well, I guess that adventure's over because they don't know where they're going.
Yeah. Yeah. The When the quest giver dies, of course, and then they don't know how to proceed, unless you're just like, oh, there's a new quest giver. I recently have found a resource that I have loved called the three clue theory.
hmm
um, has been actually really changed that specific thing for me, which is when it's like this kind of concept and like framework that you use to DM, but you start with the secret, and then you go working backwards with three clues, like with three different ways they could get to that point, and then you like fractal it out somehow. Um, for example, like let's say the clue is a werewolf, like the bartender is a werewolf, and then there's like three ways that the players maybe could discover that the bartender is a werewolf. Each one's like a subplot. Like maybe one is they on when the moon is full, they could like figure it out and just like find him. But then like another one would be like that they've been like killing specific people that are like important to that person or something. And then each one of those, there's three ways they could like run into that. Um, and you just keep going, and the clues get smaller and smaller. For me, it's really found a good way to bring the secret all the way to the players, and then be like, oh, this is how they'll learn about it, and how they can make mistakes and still solve the puzzles because there's multiple ways to solve them, as opposed to like multiple gate, like multiple holes, loopholes they have to jump through, bottlenecks.
Yeah, it's
um
it's definitely very good advice for designing your own puzzles or your own mysteries, is you have to give more than
yeah,
one clue that yeah, so that the players can actually figure it out.
yeah.
Because
I think at some point I was just like, hoping they would figure it out, and then just like being like, oh, and then just like dumping it on them when I want to. And then the players can kind of tell that, and it's kind of like unsatisfying when it feels like it's arbitrary. Um, it's nice to have like creativity and flow, but not not with the parts that feel like the DM is just like changing the rules all of a sudden.
Mhm.
It's kind of like it's hard to, thinking about it, like it's kind of hard to describe.
Just thinking one other thing that I've done in the past for puzzles is like you always want to have a way for the players to proceed if they're not able to find out what it is.
Yeah,
So unless like you're actually running some sort of mystery or investigation campaign, which is indifferent and
yeah,
not usually what D&D is made for. But
mm,
one example I had was there was a puzzle. There was like three stone golems that they had to like
mm,
answer their riddle. And they got one of the riddles, but not the two others. So then those two golems fought them, and then they were able to proceed into the next room in the dungeon.
mhm.
But that the first one that they answered the riddle on, they didn't have to fight that one because they'd gotten the riddle.
Right.
So if they'd gotten all three riddles, then it's like they get to move on without a fight. Um,
Yeah,
so that sort of just it makes that they made that fight that dungeon harder for them because they had to fight two of these big nasty
of
monsters.
course.
But
Yeah,
it's still like they got to have some fun and move forward.
yeah. I I really have been interested lately from a couple of 95 issues that I saw that uh where like you put a a choice that they make along the road will then like influence the next encounter in some way, and like you've kind of like already decided the terms of like if they end up with this conclusion, it will influence them the next time this way. If they do it with this conclusion, the next time it will influence them that way.
Hmm.
And it sounds like that's like a similar thing, what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit. Well, I had another question I wanted to ask you if for
Sure.
running first edition.
Mhm.
If I remember right, that in first edition, like your experience and your level is somewhat tied to the amount of treasure your character has accumulated. Is that
Yes.
something you're still running?
Yeah, it's interesting part of it that you basically pay for your experience points. Um, that like not only do you get one experience point for each gold piece you get. Um, so like getting the treasure was so important to leveling up. But then to level up costs that many experience points in gold. Um, and so the idea is that you don't just like video game level up, like evolve like a Pokemon or something. It was like ultra realistic where you would have had to find someone to train you to level up. Um, and had like in the rules, technically you're supposed to use a week per level. Like so if you level up from level 6 to 7, that would take like 7 weeks
I
of
remember
training.
this. Yeah, I did. I started
Yeah.
off with second edition, and we were
Yeah,
using those
yeah.
rules. Yeah.
Nice. Exactly. And so like if someone's a level 6 warrior, which in my game would be like very high level, like then they'd have to find someone who's level 7 or like do something elite to like overcome that level difference. Like while a level 1 person could just find like the local swordsmith or something to train them if they're like level 2 or 3 or something. But but it's true that I take a very different approach to leveling than like a lot of the modern games, which are more like focused on progression through the levels and classes and skills. Where in my games, the levels often kind of take more of like a back seat.
Hmm.
I think in my main campaign, my players, I mean, I'm just very thankful for them. But I think they've been level 3 for over a year now.
Oh wow, that's a long time.
Which because they don't get to play every week too. We're busy, but um, they are just made it. As I said, they just made it to Octavia, and they're about to hit level 4. We've only been playing 2 or 3 years, um, so
A level a year.
um,
That is that is a
yeah.
different rate of progression for sure.
When when they choose to, and that's because like, well, not only do I want to feel important, but also like as I said. I want the game to be fun other than just the progression through the game of like leveling up fast and that being the the dopamine of like the getting it. Like I want it to feel like good for other reasons too. And so if someone is like really, really focused on leveling, I will try to um kind of like work with them to find ways to be more fun in the moment, kind of just like feeling how they can get stronger or better. Um, and like I like to be more about like ethical choices and sometimes like that, and how you want to be in the world, the character. I feel like the more I can make the world feel good, the richer it feels like for the character to make choices and be a person in that world.
Hmm.
Um, so, the leveling doesn't occur that much, and when they do level up, like, I like to work with the player on like what skills do you want to get? Do you want to get some martial skills or some spells? We can take them out of the book. You gotta homebrew the spells in the AD&D book a lot because some of them are like, like it depends on which spells you want to use, but not all of them are like created equal,
Hmm. Yeah.
and some are like kind of game breaking sometimes.
I feel like that's still true in 5th edition.
Yeah, and in fifth edition, people have more of like a understanding that they will get to access all of those things, like if they're in that class. Um, in AD&D, it's a little bit easier for me to like have that discussion where it's like, uh, like if you have any kind of special power, you might be the only person in the whole world with that power. Um, and so like using like one thing to play with at a time, but through lower power is the feeling of like specialness sometimes, and
Hmm.
also danger.
Yeah.
Also danger, yeah. So yeah, that's very old school, style. Um, but oh yeah, your question with the I'm just telling you about my philosophy on levels. um, with the paying for it, you know, it depends. You don't wanna just not let your players level up if they get to a save point or a checkpoint, like, at the same time, it's really satisfying to level up, and, um, you wouldn't want them to have to, like, scrape together some money unless it's that kinda game where they're playing rags to riches story, which wouldn't have, like, a plot so much as they're trying to accrue wealth, which would be like an original D&D type of campaign when you just, like, look for treasure,
Right.
get more, like, powerful. Decide how you want to do the geopolitics at the same time, but you're just increasing in wealth and strength and stuff, and that's why there's so many rules for henchmen and castles and things.
Yep. Yep.
I will let them just level up if they don't have the money. Usually, they're like in with one of those religious groups, and they'll just like pay for them to do it, or they'll figure it out some way or another. Um, Hopefully they have, as a good DM, hopefully I've given them the proper amount of gold to pay for that.
Yes. Yes. That's
um,
always like you. Even though gold is required for training and that kind of thing, you still have to like balance it as a DM.
yeah, so I just figure I better have just given them the right amount and like opportunities to find gold and stuff, and they'll level it up, and then they get a big health increase, which is huge in AD&D. That health increase.
Yep.
Yeah, and they'll be training and stuff, and I run it. I probably won't have it take 3 weeks for the level 3 to 4, but I run it on a calendar. I designed my own calendar system, and so a week is only 5 days, but I have it with they're on a timeline like a race against evildoers. So that will take a chunk out of their time.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I like time clocks like that, where
Mhm.
the days actually matter. I feel like once you get teleport, all of that pressure kind of goes away.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely don't have like just instant teleporting going on in my games.
Well, and especially not for third level PCs. That would be
That
ridiculous.
was over third level, and because I love hex crawl and wilderness transportation so much, so I don't think teleport's even a spell in my game.
Yeah. Yeah. It wouldn't work for hex crawls at all. You're right.
It's just how it goes sometimes. I a lot of the memes on D&D memes I don't always like resonate with when I'm like playing a game, but it's fun. Like, a lot of fun. The calendar is the each week is 5 days, and there's a nine 9 weeks, 5 days.
Hmm.
So 45, and there's 8 months, and then there's some holidays at the end of each month, and that will add up to about 365. But it's not quite right. 5 days of the week are um, there's a small day, and then long day, and the short day, and big day, and finally good day.
Okay.
Those are the 5 days of the week. Um, and so I have on my little spreadsheet here, like I can tell you that Sment Russalina died on the eighth big day of Durf, Urf Octavian year 243, in the battle under Dell, uh, energy absorbed into Jort Goodbean's arm. It appears that that's how he died. I remember that. Um, so, tabulate it all out.
That's cool. Yeah, mine is less original. I'm just using 30-day months. I don't have weeks anymore just because it was too much to track, and each month is
Yeah,
tied to the length of a moon, um,
that's
and
good.
then 12
Nice.
months, and the years are just, let's just say they're actually 360, and forget about calendar drift, and yeah, then I don't have to
Oh
think
yeah,
about
yeah.
it.
Every DM has to come to the point where they say, "Am I going to have a calendar in my game? And will I play rations?" And I find that it's definitely not saying it's the best way to do it, but it's just my personality. I always say yes to every option. So I have my own calendar, do the rations. Um, in fact, I take a lot of attention to calendar drift. With each month being 45 days, that's 360. Four holidays at the end of each season of 2 months, 364. And then there's very long day, because a council of wizards came together and tried to figure out why there was seasonal drift in their calendar,
Mm,
and made very long day. Um, but there it was off, and so then they made another day called Very Short Day, which led to a whole another issue. And now there's like a group of people who maintain that calendar. Some of them are in Octavia, and they have like a series of like books that they wrote. Um, so like,
all
uh,
this justification to have the same length as our Earth when you could just say it's not the same.
that's the best way to do it. So this one is Good Day, more like Bad Day. Inherent contradictions in the Earth Octavian calendar system. And then why the very long face? Additional inconsistencies in the Earth Octavian calendar system. But there's like another campaign going on there where like it actually became very important because like they created a cataclysm with the very short day, trying to make it shorter by extending very short day. Um,
So these are
and
the book titles you mentioned are in that, like the chart you have when you're rolling, like when someone's looking at book titles in a
Yep,
library.
yes,
Okay, cool, cool.
yes. That I have the columns. There's title, author. I got some contents and like any other facts I may need to know. There's Not Just Very Tall People by Hadrila Vancor. This book uncovers common misconceptions about giants, namely that they are identical to humans but very tall.
That sounds a lot like a brown paper bag book I read when I was a kid, which was I am not a short adult.
I am not a short adult.
Yeah, it was all about like the
Yeah,
differences between children and adults.
yeah, it's just like that. That's basically right. One of the greatest moments I think that I can never remember in one of my games is when Zuba, the cleric, played by my friend James,
Hmm.
um, he got a book called um, how to inspire children. Is how it's called. Yeah, and he just gave the book to the children. It's called Inspiring Young Children, and he just handed it off to the children so they could inspire themselves.
All right, there you go.
That's the,
All
that's the
done.
kind of underrated move that you can get out of Zuba.
I have a question for you. Have you heard of the Hackmaster system?
No.
That's a I mean, newer system, I guess, is relative. It's newer than first edition. Uh, and it was based off of third edition and trying to take it back to like the first edition and second edition roots.
Yeah.
So it has a decent amount of the same stuff that's in first edition. So it's got like
Mhm.
percentile skill checks,
Yeah.
and um, paying to level up, spending time training, um,
Mhm.
and having low hit point totals. Not as low, but still sort of
Yeah.
you're on the same level as the monsters pretty much, and your HP increases really slowly.
Yeah.
Um,
It's called is it officially associated with D&D called Hackmaster? Or
uh,
is it like
so the initially yes. So Hackmaster has had two editions, and
hmm,
they joked that it started off with the fourth edition. So fourth edition Hackmaster, the first one,
hmm,
started off as a parody of third edition. So it has a lot of
hmm,
jokes in it and other stuff like that. But it's technically an officially
interesting.
licensed product.
I
Um,
see.
but then fifth edition, the second one, is its own
Hmm.
thing and it more takes itself seriously. So that's the one that I was
Interesting.
talking about here.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I might be interested in that. The thing about the editions is when you play first edition, you see all these issues in it, and you see like how could I fix all these issues and relate to it. And when you start to change a lot of them, you start to see that it looks kind of like second edition.
Yes.
Uh, and then you keep going. You're like, well, what are all these issues in second edition? Why I don't like it? Well, a lot of the ideas, I think I like lots of original ideas, and it turns out that's what they did in third edition. And then you see fourth edition, fifth edition, it's like, yeah, it's not perfect, but it kind of is like the way it is. And you can always change those rules to get where they are. And so now 5e is where it is now, and it has its own things that are great about it and its own problems. And you can make a meta, but what I really love about D&D is not having a meta, is like the oral tradition and the games being unique.
Hmm.
Because like I said with the levels, like it kind of like displaces the idea of like playing it optimally and winning. Like if I want to play a game optimally, I'll usually play Magic or I'll like play some video game, like I love playing optimal games, but um like what I love in D&D is that you don't have to try to like win or like be the best.
Right.
And so I like to come up with my own solutions to just the AD&D rules with like my friends and I've thought about some things that could be easier. I tend to have the capacity just to be able to homebrew like a change myself. But I would love to be able to like contribute more to like adventure league stuff and stuff like that. But like there's so many things you could do and sometimes it feels like it's cyclical.
Yeah. No, I definitely see what you mean there.
Yeah. If you're not trying to get to like an end state of rules, then like you can kind of start wherever. Though some systems are kind of not as good, I guess.
Hmm. If you're happy with the rule set, yeah, exactly. Why change? Yeah, I played third edition for like 15 years. So
Awesome. Yeah, third edition is great. So yeah, like it definitely is a learning curve for some of my players. That's for sure. That's for sure.
yeah, and Hackmaster's great. It's definitely more
Yeah.
complicated than first edition though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, if everybody who plays first edition or like knows how to play first edition has homebrewed it. If someone says they're playing first edition and haven't homebrewed it, that's a problem.
uh,
And be like, damn, you're gonna play first edition and haven't homebrewed, or they're like incredible. They're like, I play like straight raw AD&D.
Power to that singular person that I'm sure exists. I would say the one biggest change for Hackmaster is that it has a building point system for designing
Building point.
for your characters.
Yeah, sure, sure.
It's a bit like GURPS with how your characters advance, but it plays a
Hmm.
lot more like first or second edition in the
Yeah,
what it feels like for like what your character can do.
I see. Yeah, I do like building stuff. I love drawing on magic cards as long as we're like with Hasbro hates me. I'm always crossing over magic and D&D, but only for free.
Oh, you
Um,
monster.
yeah, I love to use Scryfall random cards and be like, let's roll on all of the magic cards of all time to see what spell you gain if someone's up for it. That's how I like to be sometimes. But
That
it's
that
all
sounds pretty
what's fun to
cool.
the player. It's all as long as the as long as the player feels like they have choice to pursue their goals and stuff, and I like say far enough ahead of time that these are kind of the rules of this world, then like we can have a really fun time. There's like so many options. Once you get in a big world, there's so much choice.
Yeah. Um, is there anything else you wanted me to ask you, or anything else you wanted to say in the interview?
It's a good question. I really think that the randomness of D&D is a wonderful thing. Um, and to look at some of those old charts that are online, and the people who are making the charts, that's the best part. The people who are making all these charts online, um, keeping the randomness in D&D. That's why I have a god of the unknown, because the characters are starting to become self-aware of the NPCs are becoming self-aware of the weird rules of their world. Some things feel very random, and so they develop religions of like the unknown.
Yeah, that that kind of makes sense in a world where the outcome isn't so much just decided by like a bell curve,
Yeah.
but is more like a D20, where it's everything is much more
Yeah,
swingy.
I mean, if there were like, yeah, if the NPCs were like fully fledged people and started to become like we're living in that type of world, what type of religions would they create to try and explain their weird ass world? Like, that's the kind of thing I love to think about.
Yeah, I think that's like why GURPS moved to a 3d6 system for
Mm,
deciding like the outcome of your actions is because 3d6 is much more like you're gonna be in the middle almost all the time when you attempt something.
mm, yeah, definitely,
So,
definitely.
when you try to do something, usually you're gonna have the same under the same conditions, you're gonna have the same result, unlike a d20 system where it'll be radically different.
Yeah, yeah. No, I just love playing some D&D and I really appreciate being on it here with you. Like it was nice to talk to you about D&D. Love talking about D&D almost as much as I love playing D&D, almost as much as I love thinking about playing D&D.
Yeah,
So
it's a great game. I always feel a lot better when I get the chance to play.
yeah, I love inviting people over to my house and then like convincing them to play D&D, being like, "Hey, let's just look at like a couple of these old books. Aren't they weird and cool? Hey, like what you could do, like if you were to play, is like you'd roll these dice and like you write it down on this sheet. Oh, like, look, you made a character. You wanna? Maybe we should run it. As long as you have a character, maybe we should play a little bit. Yeah, but I could keep talking about it all day. So I just appreciate giving the opportunity.
Yeah. Did you want to give any uh, piece of advice to other DMs before we hang up?
I think I've already said a lot of my opinions of playing, and uh, I'm not going to be able to wrap it up in with a perfect bow. If I could write them down, some of my lessons, something about being open to change and flexibility, but each DM is like the thing is I do a lot of stuff that I think is fun for me, but if it's not fun, then you don't have to do it. Like there are lots of options you can do in D&D, and I like to pick elaborate and work intensive options, but I think some of the best package delivered experiences sometimes only have like two or three moving parts. It's like Ikebana theory or Ikebana. How is that pronounced?
I don't know what theory you're talking about there. Sorry.
It's like a Japanese theory of flower arranging, where you only have three elements, and the three elements are simple, but they interact with each other in like a complete way.
Okay.
It's like just a couple moving parts in like a very small story, maybe even one player and like just a couple characters can feel super deep. And you don't need, I mean, sure, I have an Excel spreadsheet. There's hundreds of characters, but you don't need them. That's
Yep.
why I kill
Yeah.
them. So that's a great note to end on.
Yeah. The George Martin aspect of storytelling. If it's not needed, eliminate it.
I am a big fan of George Martin. He's gonna write that book.
Yeah, yeah.
He's almost done.
I've heard that for the last 6 years.
Almost good. You know, I talk about killing the NPCs cavalierly, but then when it actually happens, it's like pulling teeth. It's horrible. You know, we're all there's tears and you know it's like it went so long that like I had an issue in one of my campaigns I had to resolve and fix, which is they ended up getting like 15 NPCs, just like this huge parade of warriors to act as a human shield. And I was just like, I cannot play all these characters, and it's silly right now. So I whittled them down, but it was sad when some of them died.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's it's a killer DM right there.
Yeah, I had to kill like 20 NPCs. So that was fun.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if there's nothing else, then
Yeah, man.
thanks, Scraw, for coming on the show. It was nice talking to you.
Yeah, nice talking to you too.